3, 4.
We just live right now, man. It's going down, excited for the season. You know, we coming off a playoff win. I mean, you know, we had a couple wins.
Hello and welcome to Diaries, a Milwaukee Bucks podcast presented by us, the staff at Brewhoop. One of your two usual co-hosts is not present today. I'm Fayaz. You might know me. I'm the managing editor of Brewhoop.com. I was on the most recent edition of the pod, so maybe there's some recency where you recognize me. But I'm joined today by another one of my compatriots, one of our editors from the site, Morgan Ross, and we were both streaming that game on playback just now. This game one of the Eastern Conference first round, the revenge series between the Indiana Pacers and Milwaukee Bucks, this time starting in Indiana. The Bucks will be down 1-0 heading into game two on Tuesday night. They have 2 days off. They lose 117-98 in a game that had a lot of frustration, especially in the first 24 minutes. Some interesting moments in the fourth quarter where it was like, hey, maybe they can at least make it look respectable at the very minimum, but they end up losing by 19. I wouldn't necessarily call that respectable. But they did have a chance at multiple points towards the end to cut it to single digits, but they could not get anything through the hoop. Both teams actually go over 3 minutes and 25 seconds without scoring between the 5:25 mark and about the 2-minute mark of the quarter. And that's when I think it was Pascal Siakam, or was it Miles Turner? Miles Turner hit that three that made it a 15-point game. It had just been sitting at a 12-point game for a long time. Anyway, and that kind of did it. But there's a lot to go over from this game. Maybe one of the big things here is that when you shoot 24% from three, the Bucks are 9-37, and the Pacers 13 for 34, nothing outrageous. It's just really hard to win a basketball game when you're shooting that terribly, and they start 2 for 16 in the first half. But Morgan, where should we start here? There are a lot of ways we can go, but there's
let's talk
fast
lineups.
break lineups. Yeah, let's just start with the big problem.
And lineups kind of touches on everything. So
yeah, like you can. Like once the ball leaves your hand, like you don't have you have less control over it, but lineups are something the Bucks and Doc Rivers do have control over. So where should we start with that? There are a lot of things to talk about with the lineups too. There's some bad lineups we saw playing today, notably the starting lineup, which is not good. That should be, in theory, your best starting lineup.
Right.
But
it's just tricky. It's tricky because you don't want to rock the boat going into the playoffs. You want to have continuity with the guys who are going out there to start the game. At the same time, you look at the box score and you see all of the starters with double-digit negative, plus minus, and the end of the last couple minutes ended up skewing this a little bit. But all the bench guys, single digits, some positive, some negative, but I leave this game with good things to say about AJ Green, good things to say about Gary Trent Jr., good things to say about Jericho Sims, who, one interesting piece was both coaches did seem to go with 10 guys. Obviously, Jericho didn't rack up minutes, but 935, nothing. Mm-hmm. And on the flip side, I can let you revel in the Kyle Kuzma stat line, but Tony Snell has graced our presence again. Zeros across the board. The only non-zero numbers being his attempts from various parts of the floor and fouls, which is, I guess he didn't have any turnovers, so
that's true. That's the one thing.
that would be one good thing. But and so you have Kuzma in the starting lineup. You have kind of quiet days from Torian and Rollins. Torian notably with only one shot and for the league's leading 3-point shooter, ideally that would be
Yeah.
more than one. I think
That
Rollins,
came after half too,
yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
Rollins ended up with going 2 for 8 from the field, and definitely felt that, he was decent, but felt like he was getting a little bit outside of his wheelhouse,
Had a nice start, like the
especially as the
first few
game wore
minutes.
on.
Yeah.
And then you get up, and obviously, Giannis is going to be Giannis and get his minutes. But first half, Giannis had the worst plus minus. I think he didn't finish there, thanks to Kyle Alexander Kuzma. But certainly, like we weren't seeing him close out on some threes. We were seeing him get a little bit ISO heavy, which part of that's on Giannis, but part of that is the lineup. Like if your kickout option is Kyle Kuzma, yeah, you're gonna bully it 3 times into Miles Turner's chest, and for till the cows come home. And then Brook is kind of a tricky one, where I feel like Brook didn't have a bad game. It's just a question of this opponent, and like even though he was getting back, like he's a bigger guy, slower guy, and not necessarily someone you need matching up against this younger, more athletic Pacers lineup, which I feel like when you have like KPJ, GTJ, AJG all coming on the bench, these are guys who can like keep up with your Nemhards, they can keep up with your Neesmiths and Toppins and so on. And I just feel like, especially for this opponent, this discrepancy between the starters and the reserves really comes to fore.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about how Nemhard really was cooking them the first half. He actually only finished with 17 points because he had only 2 points in the second half. But at halftime, he was their leading scorer. And I'll get to Kuzma in a second, but that just made me think. A lot of people, like, as to Brook Lopez and his place in this series, I do think he's got a place on it when they are trying to defend this Turner and Halliburton pick and roll, which is, I mean, one of the best pick and roll combinations in the league. Really, as a ball handler, there's no one better in the pick and roll this year than Halliburton. Like, he literally, among all people with over, I think it's just 100 possessions
among all pickers.
Exactly. He's got the most points per possession of any ball handler this year. And when they are dropping on that, it can work. We did see it work a couple times today. Wasn't necessarily with Turner on the roll. Sometimes it was Siakam, but Lopez has always had that ability to keep 2 guys in front of him. I just think the problem is they were switching that pick and roll a few times, and then Miles Turner would be on Ryan Rollins or Gary Trent or AJ Green, and that's not going to work. So I think a lot of people will blame Lopez for some of the like, especially like the fast break opportunities they were getting in the first half, Indiana. And I mean, we should mention 22-5 was the fast break edge, but at least the Bucks, most of that came in the first 3 quarters, because in the final, in the second half, the Bucks on the break, or the Pacers, I should say, on the break, it was only 7-4. So does get a little bit better, but early in the game, no one was really getting back outside of Brook Lopez. And so he was one of the only guys able to, get after someone like Nemhard going to the rim. But yeah, with Giannis, there were just a lot of moments where I felt like he wasn't playing defense from the start. Like maybe it's like he's conserving his energy, but he wasn't closing out. There were a few blown coverages on the opening possessions that resulted in wide open threes for the Pacers. I remember Turner hit the first one, then the next 2 they missed pretty badly. But the process on those for the Bucks really did not look good. I think with Lopez, you use him in this series, but you kind of use him sparingly. You match him up somewhat with Turner, but I think it depends kind of who he's out there with. And boy, who he was out there with to start the half and the game really did not look right. I mean, I've said this, I've written this week, and other people have talked about this, like the starting lineup that has been used since Dame went out. And we'll talk about Dame at the end of this because we got to get to him.
Yeah.
But since he went out and Ryan Rollins took over at point guard, Rollins, Prince, Kuzma, Giannis, Lopez, 146 minutes, actually plus 12.4, 130 offensive ring, 116 defensive ring, which I get it. Like that, like it doesn't look good. Like how are you don't understand how like they're that competent of a starting lineup with the size there. And again, like a lot of that was coming against, they played the Phoenix Suns, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Pelicans a couple times. Although one of those games Giannis wasn't playing, so that lineup didn't play. But I mean, I think it was like it earned a look to start this game, but it was just used way too much. I think a big turning point in this game was at the 5:25 mark of the second quarter. Doc Rivers reinserts Kyle Kuzma. The Bucks are down 13 at this point. In the first quarter, they played it pretty even. I mean, the Bucks didn't lead this game after the 9:03 mark. They immediately after Giannis scores at that point. Well, that was part of a 9-2 Pacers run when that was their 2 in that run, and the Pacers never looked back. But towards the end of that quarter, I mean, it was a single-digit game, and it got to double digits a couple times, but largely the reserve lineup that was in there that we saw to start the second quarter was this Giannis plus the bench lineup that's closed out all these games so miraculously in the final week or two of the regular season. But it didn't even have Giannis. It was Bobby Portis and then it was Jericho Sims. But they were treading water. They even, I think maybe were, I think they were just maybe -1. Maybe they were even +1 at one point. But regardless, Giannis and everyone re-enters. But it wasn't Kuzma, with Prince re-enters at the 5:25 mark. They're down 13. And then that lineup does not exit the game. Obviously, there's a half, but they play the next 9 minutes and 40 seconds over the halftime break. There's not a substitution made until 7:45 mark of the third quarter. And that was when Kevin Porter Jr. comes in. In that time, it goes from a 13-point game to a 26-point game. And that's, as we saw, very tough to come back from. Like if they had kept it in even that like 15, 16 points, they get that fourth quarter comeback might have been enough. So the starting lineup, I mean, I think I know what you're going to say, but like after one game, I mean, two-part question. One, do you change the starting lineup like in any way? And then two, regardless of that answer, like how much do you even play this particular lineup moving forward against this team? I know it's a 1-game sample size, but it looked horrendous today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to answer the questions with more data, just looking at the minutes even is fascinating. Like,
yeah, they didn't play
second,
too much.
Third, fourth, and fifth leading guys in minutes are coming off the bench. You have Giannis at 38, and then you have KPJ at 29, Bobby at 25. I missed Gary and AJ up at 27, and then this Kuzma. So, and I guess partially.
Rollins, Kuzma, Lopez, Prince all played between 19 and 22 minutes.
Yeah, and like credit,
and they were that damaging.
Actually, smell the stink, I guess. But at the same time, like is this literally the best foot that we have to be leading off here? Like it's like to me, I just like. The whole thing of starting lineups is obviously for any given lineup, it's nice that they have minutes playing together under their belts. At the same time, they're pros and they are playing these minutes together. They just happen to not be the first few minutes of the game. So like, I just don't see why we can't lead a game, with the actual lineup that we've been closing with. And I get, AJ Green obviously picks up 5 fouls today. 27 minutes is probably the max that we can get out of him, but I don't know if we would want necessarily even more than we got a lot of AJ for mostly good. And I guess what I did want to highlight, KPJ with 29 minutes and Bobby with 25 both seem a little bit high. Porter Jr. was really the only. He racked up 5 of the Bucks' 15 assists. Giannis only with 1 assist on the evening, which is
that's very rare for him lately.
And then Bobby, 4 points. When he's not in there for his defensive prowess. So, I
rebounded well today. He got 8 boards.
Yeah, which is not.
It's not nothing.
Yeah, but so for me, Giannis is the lock, and I would be game to throw KPJ, Bobby, Gary, and AJ next to him and
see what happens from the jump,
and just see what happens. And yes, you're gonna need to. Brook in particular, just given his style of play, is a little bit less of a plug and play than some of these other guys. And I don't mean that as a knock. It's just it'll affect what we're able to do on both sides of the ball.
You're just gonna need him at certain points.
Yeah. And
down the stretch, sure,
fine to stay in the starting lineup. And like you said, Dame probably changes.
Well, yeah, because
but.
Yeah, I wonder how much of this minute distribution you were talking about changes with Dame, because it did come out before the game. They expect him to play in game 2 or 3. So it could be as soon as Tuesday.
Yeah, which
if
I
not
would imagine
Friday.
Kevin Porter Jr. would not be getting 29 minutes on a team with Dame.
And I wonder if that would just cut off Rollins from the rotation completely. Just because Kevin Porter is their only true right now. Their only true playmaker, at least from the backcourt, without Lillard available.
Yeah.
Okay.
15 assists is just.
Yeah, and for Giannis,
and I know a lot of that is on shooting, but
yeah, it's true. I mean, when you 15 assists, when you only make 35 shots and you're 9 of 37 from 3, it kind of somewhat to be expected. But all right. We have to talk about Kyle Kuzma. I don't know how long I don't know why I've allowed this podcast to go so long without bringing this up. But Kyle Kuzma today, in 22 minutes. Well, here we'll get a little more granular here. In 21 minutes and 35 seconds, 0 for 5 from the floor, 0 for 2 from 3. He's 0 for 2 from the line. He is Kyle 0 for Kuzma today. No rebounds, no assists, no turnovers, no blocks, no steals. 2 personal fouls. Game worst, -24. This is, everyone talks about the Tony Snell game, that those 0 for games he had, against the Utah Jazz in 2017. He doesn't record any stats, picks up 1 foul, only takes 2 shots, -9. I mean, that was somehow less deleterious than this was. I think Kuzma, I didn't see him. I mean, even in some of these games where he is a total minus offensively, he manages to do something positive on defense that justifies his minutes to some degree, but there was just nothing today. I mean, I was kind of expecting him to just be a dud in the playoffs. He hasn't appeared in a postseason game since 2021. I'll be as bold to say is that had he not won that championship, thanks to LeBron and Anthony Davis and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he probably wouldn't have made nearly as much money. In fact, I'm sure he would have made far less money than what he's made in his career, and he may even be out of the league at this point. He's just not a winning player, and today it was just very obvious. He was providing absolutely nothing on either end, with just very harmful stuff on offense. I don't see he's the one. If there's one person you say all right, you got Damian Lillard coming back, who goes? It's obvious right now who it is.
Yeah, but to us is the necessary there. To young Doc.
Young, yeah, he's all 60. I think he's 68 or so. I think Kuzma, I was earlier in the game, I was saying I don't know if you totally pull the plug on him, and this was probably maybe around early second half. I'm thinking, okay, there are some maybe I would like him in this series, like to do some work on Siakam, because Siakam was the best pacer again today. He has 25 points on 10 of 15 shooting, 3 of 5 from deep, 7 boards. He really doesn't tend to miss much against the Bucks, Siakam. Like even if he doesn't have a lot of space, but he often does have a lot of space. For as rough a game as Prince had, like I didn't actually see him matched up with Siakam too much. I saw him getting onto Halliburton a bit more, and Halliburton struggled 3 of 13 from the field. It should be noted. 12 assists. Yeah, 12 assists and 7 rebounds, but 10 points on 3 of 13 shooting. Of course, the way he was chirping out there, you'd think he was their leading scorer, but he in fact was their 6th leading scorer. He only just got to double digits late in the game. So I thought Kuzma, like maybe I could see a place for him, but then I saw how the lineup with Giannis and all of the reserves was doing on him later in the game, and that's when he seemed to miss his most looks. So I don't know. I don't know what place there is for Kuzma in this series. Like I see much more of a place for Brook Lopez, who's one everyone was talking about. Obviously, Jericho Sims, he was only thrown in there. He was thrown in there very early, and then got some run in the second half, but did look good switching against some of this half court offense that the Pacers were sending at him. Zone, I think the zone, which has worked so well against the Pacers, not just by the Bucks, but by a lot. And the Bucks have played really good zone lately. They certainly were starting to run it in the second quarter, and they were running a lot down the stretch. It is better. I think I think maybe you go to that earlier. I get not wanting to just throw that out there right away, and it's not something you necessarily run with Brook Lopez in there. But the Pacers really struggle against it. They're 22nd in the league in offensive rating against the zone. Okay. With Damian Lillard potentially coming back on Tuesday, it's great that they have 2 days off, and then they'll have another 2 days off before game 3. Knowing what we know about the closing lineup, which works. I mean, they got it to 12 today, and they would have gotten to single digits, but they go 3 minutes. Both teams go 3 minutes without scoring. AJ Green misses a couple looks. Bobby Portis misses one. They had a lot of chances to get it into single digits there with about 5 minutes left. From there to like 2 minutes left, and they just couldn't get it in. That felt like the game. What do you do? Like, it's obviously in that situation, you want Damian Lillard in there, but you're kind of messing with a good thing right now. How would you approach that if you were coaching this team? Because, like, I mean, you want Damian Lillard in there, right? Like, if you don't, then sell me on that. But I would think you want him in there.
Yeah, I think you want him in there, and then you just go as small as you think you can get away with, depending on the personnel that Indiana has out there, like Dame and Giannis, and then, I mean, I'm trying to squint at AJ Green and tell myself he's a power forward. Like,
yeah, like you're running a 4-guard lineup if you take him out for Bobby, right?
Right. Yeah. Realistically, that's a tough. So yeah, it's probably got to be a Bobby or Brook alongside Giannis. But then at least you get. I mean, after today, like give me Gary and AJ alongside that lineup. I think Porter Jr. is most valuable when he's actually able to be a playmaker in there when Dame isn't there. Depending on
worth a look too.
If he gets hot and you want to use him instead of Gary or AJ, I certainly get it, but. Didn't really have it today. So, it's a balance between hot hand and best player. But I think that when you have a player like Dame, it tilts pretty heavily towards best player.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I can see. I wasn't really thinking of Kevin Porter because of how good he's been in second halves, fourth quarters lately, but. Maybe that is what you need to do, but also like how much of that success is based off of what Kevin Porter Jr. does. I don't know. I mean, Dame may not play. This may not be a question we have to answer until after Tuesday's game. But final question for you, Morgan. Do you think you saw enough in this game, like particularly down the stretch? This is the fourth quarter specifically, when they cut in just a matter of less than 2 minutes of gameplay, they cut a 21 point to a 12-point lead. Did you see enough from the Bucks to lead you to believe that they could win game 2 on the road? Dame or no Dame? You can answer it either way.
Dame would certainly help.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they're not going to shoot this poorly from 3, and
best 3-point shooting in the league. Team in the league.
I think that when the issue is, when the issue really does seem to be you need to be playing different personnel, which seems to be a very fixable issue.
Something they control.
Then it should be possible. At the same time, like, yes, Kevin Porter Jr. has been great for us. The fact that he is getting the second most minutes in our first playoff game, having arrived in
his first playoff game too.
I know, having arrived like 5 seconds ago, doesn't exactly speak too highly of wealth of options that we have at our disposal. So, I mean, I think it's the beauty of the, I don't know. They win that game and all of a sudden they're like ahead in the series because they've stolen home court advantage. And if they lose, then it is what expected. So I have a little bit of hope, but it's not a, I wouldn't put money on it.
I mean,
curious where you're feeling about that, and if you have any other closing feelings that you would like to get off your chest.
One thing is, like, I always hate when, like, I hear, like, if a road team wins one of the first 2 games that they've stolen home court advantage. It's like they actually haven't, because they didn't gain it. Just the home team lost it. Like, the higher seed team lost it. Like, now at this point, both teams have the same, like, there would be an equal number of home or away games if it went 7 series. So, like, it's not but
after, if it's 1-1 after the first.
Oh, well, if it's after the first 2, yeah.
Okay. If we win the game 2, then
that's different. Usually when I hear it, it's after, it's like, because how many times have the Bucks dropped a home game to a road team, like, especially in that time?
But even after the first game, like, it's early. But then if home court wins, the rest, the away team would still win. So, well,
sure, but it's not like they had home court advantage for doing that. They had the same amount of games at home and away.
But if they've already got the game in pocket, I'll defend the nameless internet people. Thank you.
But, yeah, I mean, it's just a weird thing to say to me. Anyway, but that's beside the point. That's a typical Van Morgan argument when we get into, like, typical just random stuff like that instead of answering your actual question. Was how I'm feeling. I think I did see enough from certain players, like obviously AJ Green, Gary Trent, who in this game. He started 1 for 5 from deep. He only ends up 2 for 7, but he makes all of his shots inside the arc. He made 3 mid-range shots early in the game that, at least helped the lead from getting too far out of hand for Indiana. And then he even makes a fast break lay-in. Him, Porter, I liked what I saw from him at points. Green, slow start, but then really big in the second half, and just he had to. If he had made one of those shots he got after the 5-minute mark, maybe this game ends a little differently. The score at least looks a little better. Those guys I've seen enough from. I think Jericho Sims, like, in the limited action, I liked enough what I saw from him, and Giannis, we've kind of buried the lead here. He has 36 points on 14 of 23 shooting, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks, 1 steal, 1 assist. And, like, the bad of it is the free throw shooting. He misses 2 free throws at, like, he goes to the line for 2 free throws twice. So he misses he goes over both times. So, but after starting 4 for 10 at the line, he actually then went 4 for his next 5. So it got a little better, but he was clearly like seeing barbecue chicken when he got Miles Turner on him, which is a common thing for him. He really likes that matchup, and 36 points, like it just underscores that they have no one who can stop him. So my whole thing with the playoff series is like you can't win it if you don't have 7 guys who are just going to be more helpful than hurtful to you. And right now, after one game, it's early, but like clearly Giannis is helping more than he hurts. Like even if he's not passing enough or he's not missing his free throws, he's still doing well. I think early indications are maybe Kevin Porter is one of those guys, Gary Trent, because we haven't seen them not be one of those guys before. AJ Green, I think Brook Lopez could be one too. So I guess it's on, getting Dame back and having someone like Taurean Prince or Bobby Portis step up and be that guy. And I can see that happening. I can see at least one of those guys kind of stepping into that like better play in game 2 that can swing it. So I'm not very confident in it. I guess I just saw somewhat enough down the stretch where it's like, okay, I think maybe they can pull this out in game 2, even without Damian Lillard, but it'd certainly be a lot easier with Dame. So that is our wrap of game 1. Not a great way to spend our early Saturday afternoons, but there are 2 days off where the Bucks have a lot of time to figure out what went wrong, and there was a lot that went wrong, especially in the first half, especially defensively. But then there were some things that went right, and if they can lean into those things a little bit more and figure out why they went right, then I can't say I dislike their chances. I think it's important to note that one last thing. Today at half, the Bucks were down 24 in game 1 on the road. The Pacers in game 1 on the road last year at Fiserv Forum were down 27 at half. The Bucks led by 30 at one point in the late second quarter, and the Pacers led by 28 at one point today. So really all is not lost here. I mean, what did that get the Pacers last year? Or what did that get the Bucks last year, I should say more accurately. So it's only game 1. It was ugly for 27, 29, 30 minutes, whatever. But I think there were some things there that, kind of reminded me of the end of that first game where the Pacers got back. They ended up only losing by 15 there. Bucks lose by 19 here. Not a huge difference there. So, but there were already some things I remember in game 1 last year where it's like, well, Pascal Siakam's they don't seem to have an answer for him. So what are they going to do about him? And that, of course, became a big problem the next game for the Bucks, and the Bucks lost that game pretty handedly. Okay, so that's game 1 for us. We're going to be back after game 2. There'll be a different cast of characters. Maybe you'll still be there, Morgan, but I won't be there. So thank you to everyone for listening, and we will talk to you soon.
Lollipop lady.